Okay, hi everybody. Tia from Order of the Bookish here. I'm here with Dasha Wallace. She is a published author. She has a couple books out and she has more coming out soon. So Dasha, why don't you tell us about what you have in the works right now?
Hi. So I currently have two books written. I have Isabel and the Beast and the Fan Society. Now I have four novellas that are connected to the Fan Society. So in my Fan Society I do a time jump, and I skip over where she learns how to be a spy. And so those four novellas are her 4 years in the academy training to be a spy.
Cool.
And I am currently working on book 2 of the Fan Society, and I believe the title is going to be The Society of Shadows.
Okay. You
So
believe
those are my
is it like in the works?
the title so far, that's the one that everybody kind of likes, but I'll probably fit it's gonna be something along that line. So, but I think that
Sounds
sounds
intriguing.
best.
It sounds intriguing. I'm a very buy a book by the cover kind of person, and like with a title like that, that was something that I would pick up to look more at.
So that was my thought. I'm like, the Society of Shadows. It's between the Society of Shadows or Shadows of Society.
Mhm.
I think the Society of Shadows fits more with my Fan Society.
So since you have four novellas that are about the same character in a 4-year period, what are you going to end up doing with that?
well, as I said, it's going to be each school year. So it's the 4 years she learned. And so each year is her growing and learning something new. And as I said, it's going to be each school year. So it's going to be called the Academy Days, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4.
Cool. And
So
where can people buy your books right now? Like what platforms?
currently, the best place is Amazon, but I do have my own website, www.dashawallace.com, and it has all of my works in progress, blurb about them, as well as updates on how I'm doing on my writing and links to my book or signed copies of my book.
Awesome. And for anyone interested, I'm going to put that link for you below, both to her Amazon books and to her website. Now, I have some questions for you. Some are going to be a little bit basic that you've probably talked about in other interviews, and some are going to be a little bit more challenging. So
Right.
let's start with the easier ones. Where did you get your inspiration for the books?
The books. The first one, the Isabel and the Beast, that one came from a what if question. What if in Beauty and the beast became a beast not because of a curse, but because of circumstances. So in my book, he was raised by the palace guard dogs, and so he acts like a dog
Oh,
because that's how he was raised.
raised. Interesting.
The Fan Society. I was sitting behind somebody in church and she had a dress that had a whole bunch of fans on it. And I do martial arts. I'm like, oh, I always wanted to learn how to do the fan and martial arts. I'm like, you know what? Why didn't people in like Victorian era who had these fans, they didn't use them as weapons? Like, what if they did and they'd be a spy? I'm like, oh, I could totally do like martial arts as a spy using Victorian. And then I just kind of went down the rabbit hole and the Fan Society came from there. I'm like, what if Cinderella was a spy and is a Victorian? Like,
That sounds so cool, though. Like that's intense. And
so it just kind of went down the road. Yeah, it was because of a dress with fans on it.
I love that. I want to see a picture of the dress. I think you need to find something for us.
I'll see what I can do. It was a random dress. It was like a black
in my mind of like fans from like the olden days. Just Oliver dress is probably not what is actually happening.
It was a black dress with little like tiny like martial art like Chinese fans, just little fans. It was a black dress with these colorful little fans on it. I'm like, that is a really cool dress.
That's so cool that you got inspiration from that though. Like what a random thing.
It was a dress. That's how I got my inspiration.
Okay, so next question. What is the most difficult part in the writing, publishing, marketing process for you?
There's really, I would split it into two. In the writing, the hardest one was understanding what created my writer's block. Because people say that, oh, I've got writer's block. Well, there's many, many different things that cause writer block. And it's usually kind of individual of what causes your own.
Yeah.
Because it depends on your own career. Mine is that I knew like I either didn't have enough of a pre-writing session, so I either needed to do a little bit more pre-writing, or I just needed to talk to somebody about it to see and give me encouragement, saying, oh yeah, that sounds good, that makes sense to me, it sounds like the character. And so every week I actually call my sister and I read out loud to her all I've written. And she's like, oh yeah, that's good, does this, and so she throws out questions to me, and it helps me keep continuously writing because I know I'm doing. Now the second big thing is the publishing, which personally I find the hardest out of everything to be an author. I was under the impression that you just had to be a good writer to be an author. That was a very, very big misconception. Just publishing, marketing in general. Like marketing is like the bane of my existence. and then figuring out all the different stuff. I've been very, very like lucky to find a group of authors, and there's a whole bunch of groups out there, but I've met this group of authors who have been, as well as Tina is in this group of authors who has been very helpful in my author's journey. So it's just getting to know a whole new ball game, and marketing is a bear.
I don't think authors realize like you can't just be like a creative and just write and it'll magically like show up in the air. You got to do like business. Like you're essentially running your own business.
Yeah, and it just doesn't magically appear. People start buying your book. No, people don't see those books. Those books never get seen by the light of day. You maybe sell one or two or family members. Those don't get seen. I'm like, oh, shoot. What am I supposed to do? So I've done a lot of research, and I'm still very low at, doing marketing. But I'm working on it until I earn enough money and I hire somebody to do it for me.
I feel that. Yes, absolutely. I always tell, I've told you this before, I always tell authors, like, if you are stressed out about the marketing, do Pinterest, like do Facebook and Instagram for the groups. And Pinterest is just like the easiest to create content about your book. And it reaches a wider audience than anything else, any other platform. So like, I always tell everyone, just go to Pinterest. It's just easier.
It's nice to just start at one, but either way, it's still it's a whole thing.
Yeah. And I love that you were like so self-aware that you knew you had to figure out where your writer's block was coming from. Because out of everything I do for authors, free consultations is the one that I get the most. So I'll have phone calls like all throughout the week. And it's just like half an hour of talking to someone who's writing their first book and they're stuck and they need ideas to bounce off of. And we're just talking about like possibilities. And I don't think people realize that trying to figure out how to continue your book the right way is like one of the hardest obstacles to get through.
It's hardest that, and just some of the biggest thing is consistently keeping a schedule. And everybody's schedule is different though. See, mine, I usually write Monday through Friday. But I have a friend who obviously can't do that because she has work and school and stuff like that. But I'm like, well, you still need a schedule. This is my rule of thumb, or what I've picked up, is write a minimum of 5 hours a week. You can either do it as one day and do 5 hours in one day. You could split it up between them. But having at least a certain amount of writing you put in a week, as I said, it doesn't have to be in one day, because as I said, people's schedule, how people write is different. What's created for you is totally different. So scheduling is a difference, but you just have to make sure that it works for you.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you do, like you personally, what would happen if you went to sit down for your hour block of writing and you're just mentally blocked? Like you cannot think of what to write. You can't think of what to say. What do you do?
I call people.
Okay.
As I said, I call my sister every week. I have like my sister and my cousin who are huge readers and they love my work. And one of them, she's trying to get to become an author herself. And so I talk to her. Another thing I do is if I can't get a hold of him, because, life is life. You can't get a hold of him every time. Another thing I do is I write questions. I create my Word document saying, okay, well, what does my protagonist need out of this? What does my you know, what is the situation calling for? Why do I need this conflict? What is it for? And then I basically create questions and I critically think about it and I write it down.
Mhm.
And so, and then I either do editing or something authorish like social media. It's got that marketing. So I do something bookish, or even I still write a minimum of 200 words. I set a minimum goal for myself. I may not, I don't have a maximum goal, because if you're in the groove, man, you're in the groove. Don't stop your writing groove.
Yeah.
But I do have a minimum set. And even if I erase all that the next day, I still wrote 200 words. And the words might still be good though. I might still use them the next day. And that's 200 words closer to my 84,000 whatever goal I have for the end of my book.
Yeah. Speaking of waiting till the next day, do you ever give your book a break before reading it again before it's published? Like once you finish writing or you finish writing a chapter, do you just like look away for a while and come back to it later?
For me, I'm usually consistently editing it. Like but I'm also hearing other people's voices and opinions. So it's not like, I'm just rereading the same thing. I'm hearing other people comment on them and what they think about it. I do put it aside, and yet I don't. So when I have my book sent to my editor, I'm writing on a different book. So I'm not even thinking about that book. So when that comes back to me, it's kind of new because I've been working on something different, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so controversial topic, especially for new writers and how they're starting out. Are you a plotter or do you just sit down and go for it?
Okay, this is something that Brandon Sanderson, love him, great author. He teaches at a school, at a college, and he has lectures. All of his lectures for his class was on YouTube. And he ended up saying this, which really like stuck with me, and I agree with it. He's like, it's not really either you're a plotter or a pantser. Ignore the child in the background. He's like, usually you're not just wholly one or the other. You're usually on a spectrum. So like for me, I'm really more of a pantser, but I do usually do a basic plotting outline. Like I have specific points I want.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi. I have specific points, like I know scenes, like I usually have several scenes, my climax and my ending, and then just before my climax I write another outline of things that need wrapped up. And so that I know where to place them. But and then he ended up saying, he's like, if you do more of a pantser, you generally have more editing you have to do. If you're a plotter, you generally are a one and done. Like you don't usually have as much of a first draft issue as pantsers do. So it's a scale. It's not a one or the other. It's just a scale, and it just depends on how much editing you want to do.
I definitely feel that. So I do mostly developmental editing, and the most problems I see big picture wise is from authors who don't sit down to write their plot. They kind of just sit down and write what they want to write, and then I have to go through and be mean about it and just be like, look, you need to outline a little bit.
Yeah, because as I said, I have hard time outlining, but I do usually make sure I know where I want it to end up. I know what I want, like my climax, where my climax to be at, and I may have a few scenes, like vivid scenes in my head. And then I basically let my characters go off, but I usually have my tangents, but the tangent is at least in that direction. So, but I do understand the pantser, but I do think you still need at least a skeletal structure. Because as I said, it's not like it's much of an outline, but.
I fully agree with that. And do you ever have that moment when you're writing and you do have your outline, but as you're writing, your outline changes?
Yes. Because especially since I'm a pantser, I do a lot of like by the thing. But I also generally write on feelings. Like I know the feeling I want at the end of the book. And so it may change what scene I wanted to put, but it still didn't change the feeling of what I wanted my book to be.
Okay.
And that ain't made any sense. I don't know.
And feelings, when people read your book, what do you want them to take from it? Like, what are you hoping that they feel?
I just want them to be happy. Like enjoy a good read. I mean,
Mhm.
that's like people have sometimes asked authors like, what is your goal in writing this book? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it was a cool story and I wanted to write it so other people can read it.
I
I
think
just
that's
want
the
people
best
to be
reason.
entertained by my book.
Yeah, I think that's the best reason.
My joy comes from people enjoying my work. And
I love
and so if you enjoyed my work, that my goal is accomplished. I'm good.
it. Okay, so that actually transitions into one of my harder questions. So there are authors who like a little bit of mystery. They'll do interviews, but they won't put themselves out there on social media. So they're a little bit mysterious. But then there's authors, mostly indie authors, who are more open. They will talk to anyone about anything and are just happy to share. Which one are you? And also which one, like what your authors, your favorite authors, what do they tend to be? Do they tend to be more mysterious or more open?
Me personally, I do like, if you cannot tell, I love talking to people. So I'm usually very often, if you don't see me on social media, it's more just 'cause I'm bad at it.
That's fair. Yeah, same.
I'm bad at it. Um, my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, he is actually very open. He does YouTube interviews all the time on YouTube all the time. He's very open, but I don't necessarily read whether they're open or not because I don't usually care.
Fair. Yeah.
If I like the book, I like the book.
Mhm.
It's just easier to meet people and get people interested in buying your book if they actually know who you are, which indie authors generally have a harder time gaining your readership compared to best-selling authors who people know their name. Their books are automatically going to be in bookstores. People already know that they're going to be writing a book in 2 years, so they
Mhm.
don't need it.
Yeah.
And that makes any sense. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense. You have to work a little bit harder to get people interested. Whereas if you already have a name for yourself, you don't really got to do much. You just got to kind of publish it and people will see it.
yeah. And as long as you're regularly publishing, people don't care. They'll buy your book.
So are there any authors that you will buy their book no matter what? Like you don't even have to read what it's about. You're going to buy it anyway because you love that author so much.
I generally, okay, books I buy, I don't have enough money. I generally either
From the
make
library.
sure the library gets it first.
Mhm.
I talk to the library to getting it first and reading it there. Um, there were a few authors, but sometimes I drop them off if they aren't reading very well. Like because authors change because we're people, we change.
Absolutely.
I used to automatically always read Rick Riordan's books. I love those books. I don't like where they've been going more recently,
Mhm.
because they've been going to the whole woke thing, and I don't do that. Um,
I get that.
so so it's really like, I mean, and then Brandon Sanderson, I like his books, but it's mostly I've also gotten into his whole cause. He has a whole like world system, and it's
Mhm.
gotten me very interested. So I am reading all of his books in the Cosmere,
Mhm.
which gets me interested in other books. But I generally read just by interest. If it sounds interesting, I will pick it up. I don't care whether you're indie or a best-selling author. It's just it sounds
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah. Is there a specific genre or trope that you tend to lean towards?
Usually anything fantasy. I don't usually read biographies. Um, I actually generally like juvenile fiction books more than any adult books because they're just more creative and they don't
Mhm.
have if you cannot tell from I'm religious. And so a
You
lot
don't
of
have to
books
do that.
nowadays
That's okay.
a lot of books are tend to now get into subjects which I would prefer not to read.
Mhm.
Juveniles generally don't get into that, so I generally just like juvenile fiction. They're fun, they're easy to read. I have a kid, I don't pay attention. My reading schedule is like so minimal right now, so I generally just read juvenile fiction books.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm honestly saying I like fantasy and I like juvenile fiction, like the Percy Jackson series and anything, not anything Rick Riordan reads. I kind of stopped after that second romance. What was it called? The Dark Olympian. Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know.
the Roman version of his
Yeah,
Percy
yeah. I
Jackson
kind of
books. Yeah.
stopped reading after that because it was getting a little off track for me.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
getting a bit off. Yeah, but I liked his Egyptian one, his
yes.
the Kane
Mhm.
Chronicles. I like those. I also like superheroes. I've read the Cloak Society. It's a trilogy,
Mhm.
fabulous series. Um, just I really love fantasy.
Mhm.
So
Okay, so tell me your thoughts on Sarah J. Maas's new books, because we were talking about authors that kind of change it up. And I am so hardcore in claiming that she's using a ghostwriter for everything after her Christmas special. So Nesta and on, I think is a ghostwriter. I don't think it's Sarah J. Maas.
I don't think I haven't read any of the latest things of her. So I cannot.
It's basically smut. Like it's all smut after that. There's not much of a plot, which is disappointing because Throne of Glass was all plot. It was epic adventure. And then
Some
after
of
that,
some of it has to do with if it's a traditional author, which
Mhm.
they go for what people want.
Mhm.
Because that's all traditional companies usually do, is they know what sells. Sells, it
Yeah,
does.
it
And
does.
so, and then as I said, it could also be a personal thing, because once you get your first book out there, life changes for you.
Mhm.
Like life changes for you. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's a ghostwriter. I can't tell you. I personally don't know, but I do know that writing changes. Like my writing from my first book to my second book, massive difference. So I mean, it could just be
Mhm.
change. I
So
don't.
yeah, that's fair. I get that. I still think it's a ghostwriter, but whatever.
As I said, I can't deny it nor acknowledge it.
If and when you read those books, you got to let me know your thoughts, because even her
Okay.
writing style is different, and I'm like, there's no way this is Sarah J. Maas's voice. Anyway,
It's
okay. So
yes.
next
Good.
question,
Yes.
kind of piggybacking on what we just talked about. So when you're writing as an author, and it's your first book and you're just starting out, do you write according to what you think people are going to like? Like, do you pick a genre and you pick a trope and you go with that and you write to your audience, or do you just sit down and write what you feel like writing and then it ends up being tropes and genres later on?
Here's the thing. This is my personal opinion. Gospel by Dasha. My whole opinion on that is that if you write to a niche, it will be easier to market and to sell. But I also believe that if you like a book, like if you write a book and you enjoy it, there'll be somebody else who enjoys it. You can sell that book. It's just if you don't have a readership and nobody knows you write, it's going to be a lot harder to get that book out if you're not writing into a niche.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing. People will, I mean, there are crazy stories out there and people like a whole bunch of things, and I mean, you never know what's your taste. And obviously tropes work. There's a reason why they became tropes.
Enemies to lovers all the way.
And you still love them. Like like I read manga. I love anime manga. And the Isaki trope where they, get reincarnated into another world. Love it every single time. But there's a reason why they became tropes. They like it. People like it. As I said, it's just easier if you have a niche. It's not that you can't do it without a niche. It's just, let me tell you, marketing is a pain. Having a niche makes, my first book is kind of like, I don't know what genre you would call that. And let me tell you, it was really hard to market that book. Because well, what's your book like? Well, it's kind of a romance, and it's kind of like a palace intrigue, and yet it's like a retelling of Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, a little bit of everything.
So I mean, as I said, that book didn't have a niche, and as I said, it wasn't that people didn't like my book. I had a lot of people who liked my book. It was just, it was really hard to market it.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the biggest issue.
You can always sell that book as saying there's something in this book for everyone.
Yeah, but as I said, but it's hard to put like categories, because like in publishing, like on Amazon, you have to put categories and stuff like that, which as I said, it's just a lot more difficult. It's not that you can't, it's not that you can't market. It's just that for me, who's bad at marketing, it's just hard to market.
Fair. Yeah, I do marketing for authors, and it is very hard, especially because I'll do anything from nonfiction to epic fantasy and just everything in between, and finding the audience and figuring out what your genre is. You have to be so specific, and you have to use the right hashtags, and you have to find the right groups to be in. And yeah, it's a struggle.
As I said, it's just easier with niches.
Yeah.
But as I said, but people But people will read your books. People read anything. Like if it's a good book, people will read it. There's always somebody out there who likes your book.
Mhm. I don't understand the whole like monster smut thing. That's the one thing I won't read. I don't get it.
It's a
But
thing.
there is a big
People have
audience
it.
for it.
But if
Mhm.
there's an audience for it. Apparently, like one of the top books was a erotic fantasy with dinosaurs. So
I
you can
remember
get it.
seeing something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you can have anything.
And someone will read
Promise
it.
you, someone will read it. But the
That's the
biggest thing
advice
is
for today.
marketing.
That's the advice today.
If you
Someone will
like
read
the
your-
book, someone will read your book. If you wrote it and you enjoyed it, there'll be
Mhm.
somebody else who enjoys it. It's just how you market it is
Love
the
that.
biggest thing.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of our interview. Our Zoom meeting is going to close us down in a few minutes. So why don't you tell us whatever you want to tell us, maybe a question I didn't ask that you want to share, and then also let us know where to get your books.
As I said, most of my books are on my website and on Amazon. I will give one piece of advice at the end is if you truly, sincerely want to publish a book and be an author, just be aware it's going to be difficult. It's going to take time and it's going to be a learning curve. But there are a lot of people in the community you just need to reach out that are totally willing to help you in every way. That, and if you want to get your book actually written, you have to write a schedule. Sorry, you have to have a schedule. If not, it's not going to get written. I promise you. If it is, it's going to take 10 years, like my first book. So you need to write a schedule. And if you have a schedule, I promise you it will go a lot quicker. Because like I sometimes only write 500 words a day, but I got a book done in 7 months. So, I mean,
Something is always better than nothing.
something's better than nothing. You slowly chip away. If you constantly and consistently do it, you will get your book written. Marketing, I can't help you with that.
I can, so I'll share.
Talk to her.
I can help with that.
She can help you with that. I cannot. So.
Okay, love this. Love talking to you. Thank you so much. This was fun. So I'm going to put all the links below. I'm also going to put her tips below so you guys can have a reminder to write your schedules. And also, if you write a book, someone will buy it. That's the tip for the day.
Tip of the day.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you so much, Tisha.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.